name is Christy Altomare, and I've been nominated for Best Actress in a Musical. There had been incarnations of it, like readings and workshops, but when they were doing the final audition, I went in and they loved my audition. Later in that afternoon, I performed with, they call it a chemistry call, so I performed with my leading man, and they loved our chemistry. And then the next morning, I found out I booked the job.
What a role, yeah. A tough guy, but there's also, an opportunity to show a human side of him, a bit more of a softer side, which I relish in doing. It's a great role. I get to sing great songs, and I'm performing with a fantastic cast, and we found an audience, which is the real achievement.
When I saw that the script was titled A Doll's House Part 2, I think I laughed out loud because I thought that is so audacious of this young playwright, Lucas Nath, to title his sequel that, of all things, to take that on. And I thought, okay, this probably has some guts to it. And I read it, and I saw the humor on the page right away, and that was a huge attraction for me because it's so unexpected. When you have that title, you think it's going to be stiff and stuffy and very period. And then I loved the mix that he suggested just in the playwright's notes of having period costumes mixed with contemporary body language and dialogue.
I think for me it's all about being on a stage in a place where I love to be. My wish when I was younger was to be on stage 24 hours a day. So this is a privilege to be on stage and to be on a Broadway stage. This is a privilege, and I'm loving every minute of it.
Thinking that the Premier's Inner Voices series function more like a workshop, an opportunity for new writing teams to get together and see what they could do with one actor in 30 minutes. And so it's almost an experimental evening. And yet, Julianne Wick-Davis and Dan Collins, who are best known for Southern Comfort at the Public, got together and thought up this little piece about a woman spiraling into obsessive-compulsive disorder. And quite honestly, it's one of the most brilliant scores I've ever seen in my life.
The Lightning Thief. It's this wild, crazy adventure of a musical that appeals to all audiences, whether they're 14 and huge fans of the book, or they're the grandparents of those 14-year-olds. There's something in our show for everybody. I play two characters in the show. I play Grover and Mr. D. Grover loves Percy. Mr. D, Dionysus, hates Percy. And I find that the kids really love Grover. The parents really love Mr. D.
Well, I wrote Georgie, My Adventures with George Rose, and I starred in it because I wrote it for myself, and I got a Drama Desk nomination, and here we are. Hi, Sandi. Just like that. Well, actually, Richie Ridge was interviewing me, and we talked for 5 hours and 15 minutes without stopping. And in the last 15 minutes, he said, I just read your book, and you should do a one-man show about George Rose. And he walked out the door, and I started typing. And 9 days later, I had the first draft, and 2 months later, I had the first producer. And then I went to the Sharon Playhouse in Massachusetts, and then to the Signature Theater in Washington, D.C., and that's when Eric Schaefer got involved, and then he brought it with me to the Davenport Theater on 45th Street.
I got to play Rosemary in Picnic, who is a sort of spinster school teacher person who sort of has an existential crisis in the middle of the of the show and kind of loses it. But it's a wonderful, wonderful role, and this was a great production and beautifully directed by Jack, with a fantastic cast. It's I think sort of a perfect cast. You cast the crap out of that.
Many of them were friends, dear old friends. Em and I are from the same hometown, Richmond, Virginia. And then we also met many new people, and Michelle Park, John Cariani, Heather McRae, Jennifer Peach, Crystal Rowley, Stephen Meir, Rowan Vickers, Jenna Levine, Hannah Ellis, and David Patterson. And it was just, it's written to be an ensemble.